And I want to talk today as we start a new series about conversations with me. I am what I say. Say it again. I am what I say. As you sit and look at a few people and tell them, I am what I say. So, as we're starting this new series, I am learning that as we are in a social media generation or a social media era or a media generation, we do find that social media many times is dictating to us what we believe, not just about the world, but what we believe about ourselves. So we are many times making a definition of ourselves based on the media that we see, the things that we are surrounded by according to the news. A lot of us, those of you who are not social media friendly, are not really familiar with things like Snapchat and Instagram and Facebook and Twitter and all those different things, but you are familiar with CNN, you are familiar with Fox News, and familiar with all these different things that are pumped into our faces every single day. If any of you all watch the news for any length of time, after about the third story, it can be somewhat depressing. Because after you hear one story, before you got a chance to respond to that emotionally, they've already moved on to another story. And many times the good stories or the uplifting stories are saved for the last 5 minutes of the news. So you've been inundated with 45 to 50 minutes of bad news. Somebody died, someone got shot, someone's killed, somebody did something or whatever. And then the last 5 minutes, they said, but some good news. And usually the good news only gets 5 minutes of coverage. So it is in the news. It's the same way with social media. Many people are looking at and scrolling all day long, whether it be Facebook or Twitter or Instagram, and scrolling. And most of the times, the things that get the most likes are the things that are the most depressing, the things that are the most depleting. And because it links with something in ourselves, it causes us to not feel good about ourselves. And there are some of us who would rather feel bad about ourselves than feel good. So we like and reshare things that really keep us down than build us up. So if you look on Facebook, most people respond and retweet and like stuff, and they be like, say that, when it's something that's ratchet or something that's just not uplifting. But things that are uplifting don't get that many likes or shares. And those things that are not uplifting usually get that 5 minutes at the end of the news, where we say, oh, I did need that. I did need something to encourage me. And that's after you've surrounded yourself with a whole bunch of garbage and a whole bunch of depressing things. And half the shows, I've even noticed that even on shows today, that most of the shows that have the highest ratings are things that have violence, that have affairs, that have a lot of different things that are going on. Those are the things that are highest rated. But things that are uplifting to your family don't seem to stay. They don't get renewed. Because people don't watch that anymore. And anybody know what I'm talking about? People don't watch those type of shows. And when I was growing up, we did watch things like Family Matters. And we did watch things like Cosby Show and those type of things, and Three's Company and whatever. I mean, I'm aging myself, but the Brady Bunch and Marsha. And we watched all those things, and they were really encouraging things. And now the top rated shows are Empire, Scandal, How to Get Away with Murder. All these different things, and and I'm not saying I don't view them, but I'm saying, is any of those titles uplifting to you? Girl, I watch How to Get Away with Murder every Thursday. And I'm not saying I don't like Annalise Keating. I do like her, but I'm just saying that, and I watch lots of things, but I'm saying those are the things now that our children see, that our teenagers see, that our generation sees, and now they see it and they watch it, and now they try to reenact that at school. When I remember when Theo tried to go off on his dad. I remember it. I remember when Theo said he's going to get out on his own, and he gave him all this money. He said, "Here's you got." He said, "Oh, I got a lot of money." He said, "Yeah, you haven't paid your rent." I remember all of that type of stuff. But now you see the child just going up against the parents like it's nothing now, and that's entertainment. That's just now cookie lines. They go back and forth. They just have this conversation until she chokes them, and then they stop. And that's the stuff that we see. Now, and it's really interesting. And the husband leaves the wife for somebody else, and then the wife and the husband and the mistress and somebody, they all working together in the same company now, and she's got a position, Cookie's got a position, and everybody's just working together, killing each other, but still working together. That's the shows we see now. Y'all don't have to say nothing. I know you like it. I'm just saying that media, the media that we see, Quan, I didn't want you to have to sit there all the time. I don't want your back to start hurting because of me. But those are the types of things now that are pumped into what we see now. So now when we have this story that I'm talking about today, we have this story where Caleb comes on the scene, and him and his family, his brothers, it says, they come to Joshua and they say, "Don't you remember what the Lord said to me what the Lord said to me through Moses?" And he comes back and he says, "Well, yeah, I remember that. I was there." Joshua said, it was Joshua and Caleb. He said, "Yeah, I remember that." But in order for those of you to really understand and appreciate this story, I would have to give you a rewind of what happened before they got to this particular story. Anybody want to rewind? Someone say rewind. So I have to give you a rewind to let you know what's going on in this particular story and how we got here. Here it is that we find Caleb when Caleb was born in bondage. Caleb was born a slave. We find Caleb. Well, the first time we hear about Caleb was born a slave. But Caleb not only was born into slavery, but Caleb also saw his family come out of slavery into the wilderness. And when Caleb came out of the wilderness, when he came out of slavery and went into the wilderness, we find that the person who delivered them out of bondage and delivered them out of slavery was Moses. That's when he first got an encounter with Moses. He came out of slavery and came into the wilderness. Now, while Caleb was in the wilderness, Caleb was also one of those who was selected to go spy out the land. Someone say spy out. I want those of you who are listening today to take your notes out, take your Bibles out, take your phones out or whatever, because I want to make sure that all of us can grab what I'm saying today. So when Caleb was in the wilderness, he was selected by Moses to go spy out the promised land. They came out of Egypt believing that they had a promise. They got into the wilderness, and Moses said, "Go spy out the land. Go spy out what it is that God has promised. Go see what the Lord has said." And Caleb was one of the 10 other spies that got to go spy out the land. And he went to go spy out the land. Someone say spy out the land. He went to go spy out the land, and this is what we find. Let's go to Numbers, the 13th chapter, and I want to make sure. The first thing when we have a conversation with God, not a conversation, before you know I am what I say, the first thing is many times you are what you heard. Go back real quick. That's the first thing. That's why I'm going to talk about that. You are what you heard. And that's the first thing. That's why we're talking about this. That's why I'm giving y'all a backdrop. Is I am what I say, but many times before you are what you say, you are what you heard. So in Numbers, the 13th chapter, we find in Numbers 13, verse 27, it says this, and I'm all in the Bible today for those of you who really need a lot of word. I'm going to give you a lot of word today. In verse 27, he says, "And they told him," these are the spies that came back after they got the land. They told him, they came back to Moses and they said, "We came to the land which you sent us, and the land flows with milk and honey, and this is its fruit." Verse 28 says, "However, the people who dwell in the land are strong, and the cities are fortified and very large. And besides, we saw the descendants of Anak there." Now, Anak was a giant. He says that everything is as it said it was. However, there's giants there, and the Amalekites dwell in the land of Negev. The Hittites, the Jebusites, the Amorites dwell in the hill country, and the Canaanites dwell there. Any of y'all kin to any of the knights? Y'all saying like who? Some of y'all might be kin to some of the knights. He said, "The Canaanites dwell by the land along the Jordan." And so basically they went into the land, and this is how I want to talk to many of us. They went into the land. I rewind it one more time. Caleb was first introduced as a slave. That's going to be very important for us to understand this story. Caleb was introduced as a slave. He got out of slavery. He got into the wilderness by the leadership of Moses. While he's in the leadership of Moses in the wilderness, we find that Caleb is now a part of the spies that are now going to spy out if their promise is actually for them. They get there to the land and they find out the promise is for them. The spies come back and they say, yes, the promise is good. There's grapes that we cannot even carry. There's all these different things. It's wonderful. However, there are giants there. There's opposition there. So it's good, but it's not going to be without a fight. So verse 30 says, now Caleb, the same person who came out of slavery, this is going to be important. I'm going to drop it like it's hot in a minute. So Caleb came out of slavery. He's in the wilderness. But verse 30 says, but Caleb quieted the people before Moses. And he said, let us go up at once and occupy it, for we are well able to overcome it. Caleb and the spies were all once slaves. Caleb had came out of slavery, and now he's in the wilderness with the rest of the people who came out of the same thing that he came out of. He's seeing the same thing that they see, but Caleb said, I'm not disagreeing with what you say, but I am saying that we are well able to overcome it. He said, I hear what you say. I'm a part of it. I came out of slavery just like you. But I also believe that we have what we need to conquer it. But verse 31 says, the other people who came out of slavery, it says that these men said, they who went up with him, they said, we are not able to go against these people, for they are stronger than we. And I want to park here and I want to teach from this point right here. The reason that many of you are what you heard first is because people can only teach you what they know. For all of you who say, I'm hood, I'm gutter, I come from all these different things, many of you, and the reason that I'm stopping saying some of that stuff is because it's feeding what you heard. Because every time I say you hood, you act like it. Every time I say you ghetto, you want to go off on somebody. And you want to steal. And you don't want to do things according to right. So Caleb came out of slavery. But when he got a glimpse of what he had never seen before, he said, I might have come from the hood. I might have came out of broken family. I might have came out of that type of stuff that's questionable. However, I believe that there's more than what I'm used to. I believe that there's more than what I've been before. Someone say, I believe there's more. All I might know is hood. That's cool. All I might know is fighting. All I might know is questioning people and saying all women want somebody else's husband. They might be all I know. However, I do believe there are a few good men that are in here. I do believe that there are faithful women. I don't believe that everybody is questionable. And that means you've got to change your mentality. You can't keep saying that everybody's messed up. All fathers are bad. All children are bad. The devil's a liar. I am a good man. How dare you discredit all men because of a few bad ones? Why don't you look at someone and say, I am a good person. Tell another person, I'm a good person. I want you stirred up. I want you mad. I want your arms to flex because I want you to know you're better than the things you keep saying. Matter of fact, this church is better than the things we keep saying about it. Caleb said, I know we came out of slavery. Now slavery, let me bring it home to you. Some of you came out of churches and all they did was lie. So because all the churches did was lie and all the pastors did was sleep with women, that's all you know. So because that's all you know, that's what you judge it by. So when people do hypocritical things or flaky things, your hood mentality comes in and you start reverting back to the Egypt you just came out of. But I'm doing a series for the whole month of May. If you don't like it, come back in June because I'm trying to get you out of Egypt.
I don't want an Egypt church. I don't want no pyramids up in here. I don't want no gold up in here. I want royalty. I'm not talking to your hoodness no more. I'm talking to your kingdom self and restoring your righteous mind. Stop saying it's a hood church. Look at somebody and say it's a kingdom church. I ain't mad. I'm just tired of talking about slavery. Can't talk no more about that. I've been out of it too long for you to start judging me based on what I came out of. My wife was telling me this other day, and I know I always say stuff that's controversial, but why not? It's who I am. My wife told me something the other day, and it didn't bother me, but it just reminded me of the slave mentality that operates in the church. And I told you all, and I confessed it, and I said it, and I'm going to say it again until those who didn't see it the first time see it the second time. That Sunday that I preached, and I put Sterling was in Africa somewhere, but that Sunday I preached, and I put Singleton on my back. And people had an issue with me putting Singleton on my back because of whatever lifestyle he might live. And I came on the next Sunday and said, I'll put your mama on my back. And the reason that I said that is because I'm tired of us discrediting people because of the lifestyle that they might live. And you who's criticizing and judging, you the worst of all. Judgment and hypocrisy is just as sin as homosexuality. And someone says, I can't believe he put him on his back in front of his wife. I'll put your nappy head self on my back in front of my wife too, if it means getting somebody delivered and set free. Get me out of Egypt. Now tweet that. Can you believe I said it? I did, and guess what? Drop the mic. And don't let me hear it no more. Let us get people free before you keep putting chains on people. Now preach about it. I'm sorry, Mel. People sometimes, don't teach based on what they know. So because all you know is messed up stuff, that's what you keep pushing down the pipe. And that's why many churches and organizations are not growing, because you're trying to control people. And there's a word for that. It's called cult. Anytime you want people to think like you, act like you, dress like you, that's not called apostolic or culture. It's called a cult. Anytime everybody's got to do the same thing and think the way, that's not individuality. God made each one of us different. How do I know your fingerprint is different than my fingerprint? He knows the number on my head. I can't look like you. He made me different. Somebody say, I'm different. Everybody's not supposed to have the same choir robes. We different. Okay. So he said, so the other slave said, we're not able to overcome this. He said, we can't do this. And Caleb said, but we can. He said, no, we can't. All we know is slavery. He said, that might be all I know, but I believe we can do better than this. Someone say we can do better. The next thing is that I am what I say, but before I am what I say, I am what I heard. Then the next thing is, I am what I learned. I am what I heard, because it's all I heard. And because I heard it, then I learned it. That means I picked up their ways. It's what's been handed down to me. And that's when people start saying, all you been is like this. That's all you are. That's all you are. If you were anything like your uncle, if you ain't like your brother, if you anything like your sister, you're not going to be much better. If you got to get to know your family, because nobody in the family has ever been out of poverty before. You got to meet your uncle, because ain't no men ever been there. So you find these things and they've been handed down to you. So that means then your expectations begin to lower because of what you learn. But Numbers, the 14th chapter, this is where Caleb speaks again. Well, not Caleb, but Numbers, the 14th chapter, it says that the Lord got upset with them because they talked themselves out of what they were promised. Some of you think the Lord is pleased with you complaining all the time. You think he's okay with some of the stuff we're doing, and it displeased the Lord that he said that you're better than that. But they talked themselves out of it, and it says that Moses had to intercede for the people. Moses had to pray for the people. And I want y'all to understand my position as a pastor is not just to get up here and hype you. Most of my job is interceding for some of the mentalities that are wrong. Moses had to stand in the gap. And you know what Moses said? He said, don't destroy them. He said, don't destroy the people. So here it is in Numbers 14, verse 20 says, the Lord replied to Moses' prayer. He said, I forgive them as you ask. He said, nevertheless, as surely as I live and as surely as the glory of the Lord fills the whole earth. Hear this right here. Those of you who see it. Not one of those who saw my glory and the signs I performed in Egypt, meaning not one of them who I delivered from slavery. So all you keep saying, I'm delivered. What happens after you got delivered? He said, after I delivered them and then I kept them in the wilderness, he said, but they disobeyed me and continued to test me 10 times. He says, not one of them, verse 23, will ever see the land I promised on oath to their ancestors. No one who has treated me with contempt will ever see it. And I want to say to some of you who you think that what you're doing is not affecting another generation. It's not affecting your children. You always talking about the church and talking against the people of God. It's going to go down to somebody else's child and to your child, and they're going to learn like you. And it says no one is going to see the promise I had for them. How scary is that? That is, Marshall, the word generational curse. That everybody gets pregnant at 15. It gets handed down. That everybody picks up traits and everybody starts learning ways by association, and it gets handed down and nobody stops to cut it and to say, I can't be that. He said everyone, he started being handed down. But this is verse 24. This is why I'm here for today. This is why I'm doing this series. Verse 24 says, he said, no one will see it, but because my servant Caleb has a different spirit and follows me wholeheartedly, I will bring him into the land, and he who went to and his descendants will inherit it. And I want to know today, is there anybody with a different spirit in Growth Point today that says, I might have only seen this, but there's something different about me that won't let me settle for what I've seen. And because of my differenceness, it qualified me for greatness. Tell somebody, I'm qualified because I'm great. I'm qualified because I'm great. I'm qualified because I'm different. I'm qualified because I'm not ordinary. Ordinary does not work for me. Different is what qualified me. Somebody holler out, I'm different. He says because he had a different spirit, he says not only will he get there, but his children will get there. Stop trying to get your children to act like everybody else's children. If your children have something different, celebrate the differentness. Get them around other different people. Get them around other gifted people instead of around crabs in a bucket. Get them out of the bucket and put them to somewhere that they can find their potential. Somebody say potential. If Facebook is hindering them, if MSNBC is hindering them, if Instagram is hindering them, if Snapchat is hindering them, take them off the device and have a conversation with them. But because you don't know how to talk and all you know how to do is fuss, you give them the device that is teaching them when you are called to teach them. I am responsible for Miles. I am responsible for Darius. I am responsible for Tori. If I see something that I don't like, I don't care how many likes the world gives them. When they get home, I'm going to say, God don't like it. It's because you drinking and smoking and everybody on there likes it and say you turn it up. I'm going to say you're going to turn up in hell if you don't change your life. That's my responsibility. Somebody say my responsibility. And we've got to take responsibility back to our communities and stop blaming on the mayor and blaming on the superintendent and blaming on the principals. The principals would not have a bad job if you actually came home sometimes. The teachers wouldn't be frustrated if you would teach your child how to respect elders. But because you become a friend to what you're supposed to change, you can't change when you're trying to be their friend. I know it's not popular today, but it's right. He says because Caleb's spirit was different. He said, I'm not just going to give him the land, I'm going to give his whole family the land. The reason that I want to succeed and to be better than what I've seen is because I know that everybody who comes after me, grandchildren that I haven't even met, daughters-in-laws that I have not even met, son-in-laws that I haven't met, great-great-grandchildren that I have not even met, will be able to say one day there was a man named Mario Radford who came and changed everything about our family. Before our family, Tori and Darius were born by a mother who got pregnant in her teens and got married by somebody who was not faithful as a dad, but she got married to somebody who remained faithful as a husband, and he changed. So now my daughter is able to look for a husband that's like her daddy-o, and now my sons are able to look at a daddy who's like me, and they say, I'm going to respect my wife like my daddy respected my mama. Change it. It don't mean you don't have fights. It don't mean you don't have disagreements. It don't mean you don't have times that you don't like each other, but they will see somebody who stayed. Look at someone and say, stay in the fight. Because every time you keep jumping out of the fight, you're teaching your children to give up every time you give up. Is this helping anybody today? He says his descendants will inherit the land. Do y'all understand why this is important for me to teach now? After I am what I say, but Tuck, I am what I heard. I am what I learned. But finally, I am what I became. What I became, Deanna, means is what I chose to be. I heard some things, I learned some things, but what I really am is based on what I chose to be. I was looking at a painting the other day on LinkedIn. I couldn't find it because I wanted to show it to you, but I found this painting, and it was these two prisoners, Pastor Guillaume, two prisoners that were behind cells, and they were given canvases to draw on. And they could see through the bars, and through their bars were lush grass and hills and landscape. And they were given just to draw whatever they saw. One painter on this side drew bars and nothing beyond the bars. The other painter drew grass and trees and flowers with no bars. One person was limited by their confinement. Other person saw beyond the bars. And I'm wondering, can you see beyond your struggle? Or all can you talk about is your struggle? If you can see beyond it and say, I'm going to get through this. I'm going to go beyond this. I'm going to be more than this. Someone say, I'm going to get through this. I am what I became. And this is what we find Caleb now here in this scripture today. I said all that to get here today. Now there's an assembly of people. And now the land that they saw a long time ago, Joshua's in position as a leader. Moses has died. Joshua is now in position. Joshua was his next in line, his understudy, if you will, if you want to say that. Now Joshua's in position. And now Joshua is now getting ready to divide the inheritance to people. Joshua starts to divide the land, and Caleb rises up. And he said, you remember what the Lord said to me? Do you remember what he said, Joshua? You were there. He said, yeah, I do remember. He said, I know you remember. He said, because in that time, this is what's important, Lashonda. At that time, Caleb was 40 years old. Mother Linda, everybody else who was with Caleb who came out of Egypt was 20. And Caleb was 40. Caleb is now 85. He's 85 now, talking like he talked when he was 40. He's now looking back at his life, Gwen, and he's saying, everybody who complained with me in the wilderness is now dead. Everybody who said we can't obtain it, everybody who said we can't be it, everybody said we can't do nothing great has died. They died in the same wilderness that I was in. We all came out of slavery together, but they died in transition. People came out with me, but I'm looking around and they got lost in the process. They got lost in transition because they weren't ready for real discipleship, so they started to fickle and fall away because they wanted to shout about deliverance. But what happens when I delivered them, then they got to start working on themselves. And when they had to start working on themselves, they said, I ain't about that. I wish we were still back in bondage. Everybody who was complaining with me is now dead. And it's just you and me, Joshua, now. I'm still here. I'm 85 now. He said, but I'm still here. He said, I was in the wilderness longer than I was supposed to be because of what I was connected to. It's not that I didn't believe, but I kept unbelieving company. It's not that I didn't believe that I was great. It's not that I didn't see the horizon. It's not that I didn't see a better marriage. It's not that I didn't see better children, but I kept complaining people around me. So every time it started getting harder, they kept reminding me that we couldn't be better than this. Am I talking to anybody today? So every time I start talking about getting a job, they kept saying, but you know you got a criminal record. So I never filled out the application because of what they told me, that I was limited by my history and not limited by my destiny. Oh, nobody told me that I could be better than my history. Somebody say, I'm better than my history. So because of that, I believe that I couldn't be more. So I never filled out any applications. So I watched jobs pass me by, and I settled for being a lawnmower. I settled for painting fences when I knew that there was something greater than me. I knew that there was something more in me, but they told me that the society wouldn't hire me because of my background. Told me I wasn't qualified. So because they told me I wasn't qualified, I disqualified myself. And it's interesting that everybody who disqualified me is now dead. So you mean to tell me I could have been great a long time ago? You mean to tell me I could have overcame a long time ago? You mean to tell me I could have had victory a long time ago? You mean to tell me I could have been in good health a long time ago? You mean I could have had good children a long time ago? Am I talking to anybody in the house today? But I allowed other people to talk me out of what was mine. Allowed other people to talk me out of it. But I'm still here. So he wasn't complaining. He started to reflect. And he says, I always believed I was more than this. In verse 10, this is what he says. He says, now then, just as the Lord promised me. Now, for those of you who don't know what's happening right now, Justin, is that Caleb is starting to give God praise. Still in the wilderness, but closer to promise than he was before. 40 years ago, he wasn't as close as he is now. He's 85. But now that he's 85, I don't know, I feel like preaching today in my last few minutes. He said, now that I'm 85, he says, I'm a little bit older now. He said, but just as the Lord promised. Look at somebody and say, he promised me something. No, I know I got a brother here, and I tell him every time I tell somebody to tell something to their neighbor, he don't like to do it, so I'm sorry. If the person beside you don't like to say it, it's okay. But find somebody who will talk back at you and say, he promised me something. It ain't no shade on those who don't like it. But for those who got a promise, I just need to holler out for a second. He promised me something. He said, just as the Lord promised me, he has kept me alive for 45 years. That means there were other people who died in the wilderness. But here I am 45 years later, still believing in what I believed when I was 40 years old. Here I am, an old man, but still believing what I believed when I was younger. Is there anybody who still believes? Somebody holler out, I still believe. He said, he said, he's kept me alive for 40. And I want to stop there real quick because I don't want to jump over there. You don't understand what it means for him to say he has kept me alive. He was chased by Pharaoh. Chased. He got freed from Pharaoh. And then Pharaoh, who freed them, then chased them. You don't know what that means until you get freed from something, and the thing you got free from then tries to chase you and take you back. Wait, hallelujah. Until you get delivered from something, until you overcome something, and the very thing you overcame then looks for you and tries to find you, but he can't find you. Tell somebody, he can't find me. He said, he kept me alive. I was being pursued. Suicide kept looking for me. Depression kept looking for me. Cutting kept looking for me. Abuse kept looking for me. Low self-esteem kept looking for me. But he killed other people, but I'm still alive. I laced up just like them. I smoked just like them. I partied just like them. I had a child just like them. But I'm still here and I'm still alive. If we could have some people that would give God praise for just being alive, but still having breath in your body, but still having the activities of your limbs, but still being able to get in your right mind, but still being able to clap your hands, still being able to open your mouth. I'm still alive. I'm still here. There were many who started out with me, but now they've gone astray. But I'm still holding on to his hands. I'm still here. High five somebody, say, I'm still here. Oh, I'm still here. I might be a little older, but I'm still here. I might not look like what I used to look like. I might have gained a few pounds, but I still got my right mind. I might have 3 children, and I didn't have none back then. But if you give me one more chance, I'm going to do now in my older self what I should have done a long time ago. That's why I praise him. That's why I came to Growth Point anyway, because I said if you put me in the right atmosphere, I'm going to be more than that church of the Frigidaire wouldn't let me be. They said I didn't have the right job. I didn't have the right income. That's why they didn't put me in position. But I came to Growth Point, said you don't need an income. You don't need the job, but you need the blood of Jesus. And that same blood now look at me today, backing away from the bed, backing away from alcohol, backing away from relationships, because I am older now, but I still believe I can conquer it. I still believe I feel like preaching. I still believe that I can be all that God has called me to be. I can do all things through Christ. He strengthens me. The weak, the weary, the youth shall faint and utterly be destroyed. But they that wait upon the Lord, they shall renew their strength. They shall mount up on wings as eagles. They shall walk and not faint. They shall run and not be weary. Wait, I say on the Lord. Tell somebody, wait on him. Oh, wait. He's kept me alive these 45 years. He says, while I was in the wilderness, he said, they died, but I'm still here. And this is verse 11. This is where it got a little hood. Sometimes you need it in its proper context. So he came back out of slavery, and now he's at the borderline of his promise. And he said in verse 11, I'm still as strong as I was back then. I know I got a collar on now. I know I got preacher beside my name, but I can still get with you if I need to. Tell somebody, I'm still strong. I still got a little bit of me. It's some of it still in me, just a little residue. I'm like Kool-Aid. If I stir me up right, I can be poured out. So don't stir me up too much, because I bring a little ratchet out when I need to. But I'm here. He said, I'm still as strong as I was. And I'm just as vigorous to go to battle. Now y'all missed that part. He said, I can still fight. He said, because the giants, Miss Judy, the giants that were in the land then are still there now. I could have fought them when I was younger, but now that I'm older, I can still fight them, because they're on property that belongs to me anyway. You better learn how to fight things that don't belong where you're supposed to be. You better learn how to fight stuff that don't belong on your property. I know what they used to say, get off this land. Somebody holler out and say, get off this land. He said, I'm just as vigorous as I was then. In verse 12, he says, now give me this hill country. Now, the King James Version says, now give me this mountain. Y'all don't get it. He says, in other words, give me my stuff back. Will you just holler out right now so the devil can hear you? Give me my stuff back. Come on, say it again. Say, give me my stuff back. You can't have my joy no more. You can't have my peace no more. It belongs to me. Give me my stuff back. Give it back to me. Give it back to me. It don't belong to you. He said, give me my mountain. I know it's a mountain, but I believe I can conquer it. Give me my stuff. Is there anybody who's desperate for your stuff? If you're desperate for your stuff, I want you to high five 7 people. I know I did it. I said 7 because on the 7th person, it's going to be complete. But high five 7 people and say, go get your stuff. Come on. Tell them, go get your stuff. Facebook, go get your stuff. Live streaming, go get your stuff. Get your joy back. Get your family back. Get your peace back. Get your hope back. Get your family back. Get your marriage back. Get your money back. Get your finances back. Get your mind back. Get your peace back. Get your strength back. Get it 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 back. Get it. Get it back. Get it back. The kingdom suffers violence, and the violent take it by force. Give me my stuff back. Get out of my house. Get out of my marriage. Give me my stuff back. Hey, I feel there's a praise in the room. Come on, open your mouth. Let the warriors cry. Let the warriors cry. Let the warriors cry. We declare war. We declare war. We declare war. I feel an army rising up. I feel an army rising up to break every chain. To break every chain. To break every chain. Everybody stand to your feet. The last verse says of that chapter, it says, when Caleb got there, I don't have it on the screen, but the last verse says that Caleb did get there, and there were giants there. But it says that in his 85-year-old self, he fought them off of his property. And this is what it says at the ending. Cecily, I don't want you to miss this. At the ending of that verse, you go back, I don't have it up, I meant to. But at the ending it says, and war ceased. What that means is, until you start being what God called you to be, you're going to fight unnecessary battles. But when you become what God called you to be and you get violent and say, give me my mountain, give me my stuff, it says war ceased. That doesn't mean he never had another battle, but it wasn't with giants anymore. And I'm saying to you, if you would stop fighting the wrong thing, what would happen if you fought the right thing? Would you stop thinking the way you thought? Would you stop fighting the wrong people? Because war will cease when you get your mind right. Caleb is an example of somebody who came out of slavery. He had every right to be what they said he was going to be. But because he had a different spirit, he said, no, not my house. Nope. I'm different. And because of that, generations after him were blessed. I have a question for you today. What might be keeping you from embracing your promise? What's keeping you from your promise? And if you want to replace the what, put who in it. Who's keeping you from embracing your promise? Who's in the way? Who's in the way? If you enjoyed the word today, clap your hands all over the building.